What is up, Tube users, and welcome back to another fantastically fun games for under $15. Today, we are talking about what I would consider the best alternative to Call of Duty right now, Insurgency Sandstorm. This game just does a whole lot of things right for a first person shooter, and right now, for the low price of just under $10, it is an absolute steal and a really fun game, both as a multiplayer online shooter and as just a co-op shooter. Both parts of this game are really fun and really enjoyable. So let's get into some of the great aspects of this game. First off, I love the map design of a lot of these maps. They're basically all kind of Battlefield-esque maps, just really large places and stuff. Some are just kind of wide open, some are like in cities, so there's a lot of variety and a lot of different heights and stuff that you can go through, which does make it confusing for people getting into this game. These maps are really big and there's a lot of different pathways to get to objectives and stuff, so it can be difficult, but just going in and playing the co-op is a really good way of learning the map layouts, and the co-op is really good. I mean, you're just playing against bots, but it is a lot of fun because it's an actual challenge. There's no real difficulty. You can play on hardcore, which is, I mean, it's just kind of like how team deathmatch and hardcore team deathmatch is in Call of Duty, right? There's not a huge difference, just like it takes less bullets to kill you, and you don't have like a HUD or anything. But this game is really minimalistic in HUD in general, so it's, and the AI I think is probably one of the best AIs in just a first-person shooter game that I've seen. So it's really fun, and I highly recommend trying it. And I mean, a first-person shooter kind of lives and dies by how good the shooting aspect is, and I really do think that the plethora of different weapons in this game, combined with how different each of them feels and stuff, really makes each weapon kind of stand out on its own. It's not, and none of them feel like overpowered or anything. Everything kind of just feels balanced and works really well. Obviously, like SMGs and shotguns are really good for close range, and you have your ARs for long range and snipers and stuff like that. So there is a balance to that, but most maps have just kind of certain areas to allow for each of those kind of gun plays to play out. Like there are maps that are pretty wide open, but there are flanking routes that have shorter lines of sight, which is really cool. The map design is incredible. So it's really fun to see that, and it's just such a great way to just get to know all these guns and just how unique each of them feels. Like anytime like I die, there's a long, well, sometimes could be a long spectating time. Most of the time it's one death and you have to spectate until something is captured, and usually I'll just make a new class with a new gun just to try something out, because there's a plethora of different guns, and just finding what works right for you can be tough, but it's really fun at the same time, just because of how unique each weapon feels. Well, each class itself kind of feels simplistic, and there's not a whole lot of difference between like the different equipment and stuff you can use for each class. The different weaponry does make them feel unique. Most classes can use just different weapons that no other class can, which is really cool. I typically like to play the advisor class just because of the weapons that they get. They don't really get any sort of special equipment or anything, but the exotic weaponry that they have at their disposal is really fun to use, in my opinion. But yeah, each class feels different. Like Breacher is a really fun one. They get access to explosive and SMGs. gunner is just kind of your basic assault class. Nothing really special, but they do get access to a lot of the basic weaponry, which is a good class to start out at and just kind of learn and get a feel for the game. And then you have your gunner, which gets access to LMGs. And then later on, you get access to Observer and Commander, which I've just recently unlocked them, so I haven't gotten a whole lot to play with them. But from what I understand, is they get access to artillery strikes and stuff like that. I haven't really seen it be like, it sounds like really cool, like, oh my god, you get artillery, but I think it's like just like a smoke artillery, so there's nothing like super overpowered about having an observer and commander. But then again, I haven't played a whole lot of them. I've seen them be able to call like chopper gunners and stuff, but I'm still not 100% certain how that works. But their weapon kits are pretty basic in terms of just how the other classes are with their weaponry, so it kind of balances itself out that way. I don't know, and I definitely haven't seen anything like a chopper gunner on or like airstrikes or anything like that in multiplayer, so it is pretty balanced. I would say each class, they definitely provide different and unique things, but none of them feel like, oh, you absolutely need to be this class to perform well. They all bring something different, and I think them working together, if you know what you're doing, is really fun to play with like a cohesive team in multiplayer and even in co-op too. Another thing I absolutely love about this game is how simplistic the HUD is. There's hardly any clutter, and it really just keeps you engaged in the game. You're not having to look around for all these different markers and stuff to try and figure out what to do next. You just have the timer at the bottom of your screen, what objective you need to go to, and you can see it on the map pretty easily. So, and just the plethora of ways to get there just makes it really good for just engagement purposes. I feel like a lot of those like Call of Duties and Battlefields and stuff, the screen just gets cluttered with a whole bunch of stuff that I don't need at the time. When I'm just trying to shoot enemies, I just want to be able to see as much as I can to try and locate where they are. Like, yeah, there's some important things like having to know how many rounds you have, how many magazines you have left, and if you just tap R, it will show in the bottom right hand corner of your screen how much rounds and mags you have left. So, and then it just goes away. So you have all the things that you need, and it just makes it so much more engaging to have just a full screen of action at all times, you know, and that is a super plus in my book. And I really do think that both co-op and multiplayer are both really fun games to play. I feel the multiplayer is kind of tough to get into at the start. I remember jumping in like one of my first times playing this game and just not knowing anything of where to go and what to do, and it does get kind of frustrating just kind of going in blind. So I highly recommend just trying out the co-op, because co-op is really fun and it's less stressful, and you kind of just get an idea of where to go in these maps and where good flanking routes are and stuff. So it's definitely recommended to do that, but I mean, it's still fun. Like, I still enjoyed myself playing multiplayer. So we've gone over most of the good aspects of this game. Let's go over some of the negative or bad aspects of this game. One thing I don't like about this game, and I get that it's trying to be realistic, like you're not gonna get like a kill feed and seeing when enemies die and stuff, but getting shot from out of nowhere and not knowing like what just happened to me and where I got shot from can be really frustrating at times, and it's a thing that I definitely hate about these realistic type of games. Like, I'm just kind of in the mindset of having a kill cam showing where the enemy shot me from, in most of my first-person shooter games, which I like because then I understand, like, oh, I was out of position because this guy was in this corner and I didn't check that corner, so I can learn from that. But getting shot from out of nowhere, I can't learn anything from that, and it's super frustrating to have it happen, and it happens quite a bit in this game, unfortunately. And I think the reason that it happens quite a bit is because of how big and how many maps there are that are just huge, and just how many different routes you can take to get to objectives and stuff, and just like holding an objective, how many different lines of sight there are. It can be super tough to just know all of this in general, and obviously people have been playing this game a lot more than I have, so it definitely is frustrating to just like get picked from an angle that you didn't even know existed or something like that. So it's definitely preferable to learn the maps, which I think is true in any first-person shooter. You're gonna have a better and easier time playing through a Call of Duty if you know the maps rather than if you don't, or Battlefield or whatever. So map knowledge is super important, and it is really tough to learn these maps. I've gotten a hang of it, and I'm probably like 10-20 hours into this game. And so I've gotten a hang for most of the maps, but I mean, there's some that I haven't even played yet. There's just a ton of different maps, so that is definitely a frustrating aspect, but I still do love the map designs, and I do hope to learn these maps just to get better at navigating my way through them. I think the final thing that I just kind of have a problem with is how each weapon has basically the same attachments that you can put onto them, and really I just stick to the same attachments because I like how they feel most of the time. Like I want like an aiming grip, I want a red dot sight, and I want like extended mags, and every gun luckily has that, but it makes it so that each gun is unique in its own right, it kind of starts to feel the same with the different equipment that you use for each weapon. So, and just how you build a loadout, each class has a certain amount of points that you put in, and it's kind of like how Call of Duty used to be, where each equipment and piece of gear cost points, and you have to stay within that point range in order for your loadout to work. So it is kind of frustrating to just have each class kind of feel the same in that way, but I do like the uniqueness still of each weapon. Anyways guys, that's my take on Insurgency Sandstorm. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like if you did. Comment any other fantastically fun games for under $15 that you know. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. That rhythm.